Welcome to IJ4EU Confidential, where we go behind the scenes of groundbreaking investigative journalism. I'm Timothy Large.
And I'm Milica Miletić.
And we're both from the International Press Institute in Vienna, where we manage the Investigative Journalism for Europe program, supporting cross-border watchdog reporting as a public good.
And before we get into today's episode, just a reminder that IJ4EU team will head to Athens next week, where we'll be attending our annual Uncovered conference.
That's really exciting. We're bringing loads of investigative journalists together in Athens to discuss the challenges of their craft. We've got a really packed agenda. It's everything from investigating war crimes to how to go undercover to the challenges of using AI in investigative reporting, much, much more as well. So really excited about that.
And this year we're partnering with IMED, International Forum for International Journalism. So it's going to be a great couple of days. We start with Uncovered and then continue with the forum. Plenty of panels, interesting discussions. Plenty of our grantees will be there. And many of the grantees in IJ4EU projects will be presented in Athens as well.
So if you're there, please do come and say hi. Okay, let's get on with today's business. And that is the business of bears. You might want to grab a coffee and get comfy because we're going to go on a journey into, sadly, a growing conflict between humans and one of Europe's most iconic yet divisive animals. And that's the brown bear. Across Europe, bear populations are surging. And that's particularly true in southern regions. And as a result of that, we're seeing the return of a very old question. Can we, as people, coexist with these mighty carnivores? Or should we consider culling as the only viable option? And our discussion today centers around Bears Uncovered, a cross-border investigation that goes very deep into the whole conservation crisis. This is a multimedia project that spans 26 European countries where bears still roam wild. And through months of fieldwork, interviews, data analysis, the team of journalists exposed not only the fact that bear numbers are rising, but also stark differences in how countries approach bear management. So in some regions, bears are protected by strict laws, but in others, they face a cruel fate. They're exploited in cages outside restaurants. They're hunted for sport. They're sold for body parts. And this investigation took the reporters mainly to 5 key countries: Romania, Italy, Slovenia, Albania, and Kosovo. And here they witnessed firsthand the complexity of this problem. And we're going to talk about what they saw and what they learned today. Now, we're lucky to have a couple of the journalists who spearheaded this investigation.
And those are Michael Berg from the UK and Ovidiu Stancu from Romania. Welcome, guys. And tell us a bit, before we start talking about the bears, tell us a bit about yourself.
We both specialize in animal welfare issues and their impact on society and environment. We did investigations on the horrific fur trade in Romania and exposing the deadly conditions in animal shelters across Romania. And we're always on the lookout for new stories.
It's great to have you on the show. Ovidiu, Michael, would you like to stay a few words?
It's great to be here.
Yeah, I've been an investigative journalist for several years, specializing especially in corruption, also animal welfare, also issues to do with anything cross-border in the Balkan region, as well as Romania, Ukraine, and Moldova.
Well, I'm sure our viewers are going to have lots of questions for you. So please do type your questions into the chat function, everybody who's watching, and we will get to those as soon as they come in. But let's kick off by playing a short clip. This is the first minute and a bit of an amazing documentary which you made, and I highly recommend to everybody to watch. Let's just set the scene with this short clip. And it's a warning, it does contain some alarming footage.
Europe is failing to manage its bear population. The large mammals are victims of human abuse, and humans are victims of bear conflict. The relationship between people and bears has turned to chaos and law-breaking. Bears are kept caged in private homes and outside restaurants in Slovenia, Albania, and Romania. Many suffer and others die or disappear. In Kosovo, bear fat is available on the black market as an ointment and a food. In Romania, local and foreign tourists feed wild bears on the street and force them to pose for selfies. When they attack us, is nature responsible or are we guilty? Bears are protected by EU law, but each country operates its own policy of hunting, saving, or eating the animals. A bear could face death or survival, depending on whether it lives in Estonia or Latvia, Norway or Sweden. In Italy, a bear that kills a man is the subject of a trial that captivates a nation. In Slovenia, such a bear would be chopped up and boiled in a stew. In this film, we show how we abuse bears, how bears attack us, and what happens when humans take the law into their own hands.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning here. What inspired you to launch this cross-border investigation into Europe's brown bear population? What was the genesis of this project?
Yeah, we saw that in Romania we both stay in Romania at the moment. We saw we have up to 8,000 bears. It's the largest population in Europe outside of Russia. Every year, about 2 or 3 people are killed in bear conflict, and the bears steal thousands of sheep and pig and raid farms. But this population is not isolated. So the bears in Romania are actually the same ones that kind of move through Ukraine and to parts of Slovakia. And also the bears that live in Greece are also the same population that can move through all the way to Slovenia and even to Italy. So it's very much a cross-border issue. It's something which Europe has to kind of look at in a kind of holistic way. But it's not happening like that. And that means that every country operates its different policy on how to manage bears. So, for example, in a country such as Slovenia, they are killing them. But in a country like Italy, which is right next door, they're not killing them at all, except in emergency situations. So you even have a situation whereby in a country such as Bosnia, the Republika Srpska has a policy of hunting bears, while the Bosnian-Herzegovina doesn't, which, if you know that particular country, is almost impossible to manage. So we realized there was a situation of chaos here, and we needed to kind of look into it further.
Can you tell us why the population of bears is growing so much in Europe?
So the population is growing for several reasons. One of them is the fact that in Romania, for example, they are coming closer to human settlements because they're getting used to people giving them food, or food being available from rubbish dumps and this kind of thing. Also, the bears like managed forests. They don't actually like virgin forests. They like forests which are well managed because there's more light that comes in, and the light helps bushes to grow, and the bears like to eat the food off the bushes. So they actually work not in a kind of wilderness like wolves do. They work better in a kind of slightly semi-human environment. And that means that as the forests, say, in countries like Romania become more kind of organized, and in Kosovo the same thing's happening, the bears actually like that particular kind of environment. Climate change is another issue which is quite important, because what happens is that bears don't hibernate or winter sleep for the entire period due to the fact that winters are much warmer. This means they're more active. And that means that because they're more active, they actually come into more conflict with people, and they're certainly more visible.
Now, countries have very different ways of dealing with these rising bear populations, don't they? In some countries, of course, it's illegal to do big culls. In other countries, it's fine to keep bears for profit, And I know you've witnessed all kinds of things, bears being exploited for tourism and kept in captivity and all kinds of things. In fact, let's look at another clip. This one's from Slovenia. This is from a Slovenian restaurant, in fact.
We're here in the Levski Dom restaurant, 40 kilometers north of Ljubljana in Slovenia. This is an old hunting restaurant with stuffed animals and bear skins. And we're now going to have a look outside where there's an old female bear who's been here for 20 years. The owner told us the bear gave birth to a cub 5 years ago, which has since been relocated to the seaside. Keeping the bears here is legal. Slovenia has passed a law that allows the bears to stay in restaurants until they die.
The problems that we have in Slovenia is that some restaurants have bears in cages because they are fascinating for the people. So they get more people to come and visit them so they can see the bear, and then they profit. The legislation puts the minimal standards on how big the cage must be. We don't believe that is enough for the well-being of the bear. You have a bear in captivity. They do need bigger enclosures. They need things that they would encounter if they would be out. So torturing them in small cages, I think it's wrong.
So 2 questions, really. First of all, presumably you saw a lot of stuff like that, bears being kept in quite horrible conditions. I mean, what was it like for you just to report on that? And also, is this a byproduct of the surging bear numbers? Is this kind of happening more because there are many more bears out there, or was this happening anyway? Is there a connection between these 2 parts of the stories? The exploitation of bears and on the one hand, and the rising bear numbers on the other?
No, I think it's not a byproduct of the rising of the bear numbers, because more or less, at least in the past 10 years, you have the media that gets involved very easily in the environment and animal welfare. So I think, for example, the bear we saw in this restaurant.
It is not just in Slovenia where.
Sorry.
Was around 20 years old, or he's been there like for around at least 15 to 20 years. So there's also the incapacity of the authorities. So, okay, someone has a bear, which is kept captive. How do you manage that? You take the bear from them, and where do you take that bear? Is it better to be in another enclosure? Because you cannot relocate that bear in the wilderness. That bear doesn't know how to survive in its natural habitat. So that's also a question of, how the so-called owner of the captive bear sees because you also have some authorities try and work, in more personal way with the people that are keeping the bears captive, and try and approach them on a personal and human level. And you would hear the justification such as, yeah, but I love this bear. I had him since he was a cub, So I think it's a whole, it should be a sum of factors. For example, if you don't have a proper sanctuary for bears in Slovenia, where would you take that bear?
Welcome.
Yeah. Although what we did find is we found in Albania, our colleague Vjosa Čerkini found 2 bear cubs that were kept in restaurants as well. So this is something which is flaring up now and again. And when the authorities kind of came down on this particular bear cubs that were in a restaurant in Albania, the people just let them go into the wild. They just opened the cage doors, even have it on film, and they just let the bears just run away into the wild. And that's not good because the bears are actually used to people, which means the bears are likely to keep coming back to people. Maybe they get run over and that kind of thing. So you have a situation whereby the best thing you can possibly do is maintain at all times as much as possible, as much distance as possible from humans and bears. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Every stage of their life, they have to be as far away from each other as possible. And that's what's difficult to maintain when you have the rural areas encroaching much more on the forest.
And so
the city, urban areas encroaching much more on the forest. So,
so as bear numbers increase, humans and bears are getting closer and closer. And of course, it doesn't help that in so many ways people are exposed to bears in restaurants. Or let's look at this other clip here, which is about a zoo in Romania. Romania has a lot of zoos, and I would say that conditions are
it's not technically a zoo. It's actually a foundation, which has found a kind of way to keep animals in captivity, a legal loophole to be able to do it. But it's really just a private home with animals.
A private home with animals.
It's and you can buy a ticket and you can visit. It's just.
And you can have your.
It's unbelievable, but it does exist.
Okay, well, let's see what it's like in this so-called foundation. It looks pretty horrible to me, but we'll always make it.
It is.
It is not just in Slovenia where bears are on display for the delight of visitors. In Romania, Menageria Dumbovița is a private zoo with over 100 animals. Managed by a local foundation, there is a lioness called Sheba and a lion called Zeus. They have given birth to 13 cubs. This young lion is called Aslan.
You can pet reform.
Visitors can fondle the wild animals. The zoo has 42 dogs running free. There is a white stag and a baboon called Bebe. One morning, 9 years ago, a box containing Bebe and a female baboon turned up outside the menageria. The owners welcomed the primates and gave them a home. One day, Bebe strangled the female baboon to death. These two brothers come from Bistrița, in the north of Romania. The owners say their mother was killed by poachers. We asked the woman about the names of the bears. She names them after the Russian president and a former Romanian minister of tourism who is in prison for corruption.
This one's Putin, yeah? With the teeth, yeah? That's it.
If the local authorities agree that such a location is sanitary, it's possible to keep animals in these conditions. In the ski resort of Straja in South Transylvania, there is another captive bear. A wooden sign on the main street points to Baloo. There is a worn and rusted cage with overgrown grass. Baloo lies up against a fence, drinking water and eating bread. A local businessman has built a cult of personality around Baloo. The new chairlift is named Teleskaun Baloo. A ski school is named after Baloo. There are wooden totems of bears.
It looks like pretty bad conditions there. This so-called, we're not going to call it a zoo. Of course, some would say that, horrible as that is, it's better than being culled. If you have too many bears, it's better for them to be living in such conditions than being culled. Where do you stand on that question?
It seems like everything is better than culling, right? But also the question is how feasible the other alternatives are. I think what you showed in your research is that alternatives like bear-proofing rural areas or creating these feeding zones could work. But the question is, if it's feasible on a large scale and throughout the Europe. So if you could tell us a bit about the alternative solution.
Yes, it is. I don't think, as we found out from our investigation, culling is not the solution, because we have the Slovenia model where even hunters, where they have a quota of how many bears, Michael, in Slovenia?
About 200 a year.
200 a year.
20%.
Somehow they kind of gave up on the hunting because it's more profitable to have tourists in and have bear watching, and also we saw models of, for example, putting the beehives higher on the constructions, electric fences as well. And also we have in Romania, we have the model of the Tushna, the city, which is considered the first bear smart city. And
what does that mean to be bear smart?
Michael?
Bear smart city. What it means, effectively, what they do is they create an environment where they can live with bears, but at the same time mitigate any damage the bears cause. So you would have a situation whereby you have electric fences around all the houses. You have a lot of education going on at the kind of school level. So it's the idea is using education as a means to education and safety measures as a means to be able to coexist with bears. The good thing about this is that it also means you can bear-proof all the bins, so the bears don't have any incentive to come to the city. I mean, one of the interesting things that we found is that there is also a very interesting phenomenon, which is that female bears who are actually often come to cities in order to protect themselves and their children from aggressive alpha males. So you have a situation whereby when urban areas move into rural areas, it actually becomes potentially a form of protection for female bears against abuse from males, because the males don't like to come into the urban areas, and for her cubs as well. And then they become slowly more and more accustomed to people. So you have a situation whereby, if you like, the women and the children are coming to the town, but the men are staying up in the forest. So you have all of these strange situations which are transforming the entire relationship here between bears and people.
I like this bear smart concept.
Bear smart, yeah, it's really
bear smart.
good.
To get back a bit to the question, it starts from the bear population management. I think the best model that we've seen was in Italy, in the National Park of Abruzzo, where Carabinieri Forestali, which is like the forest police, they do not encourage encountering the wild animals. You'll get a fine if you're trying on your own to do that. Also, the hiking, it's very well organized. You cannot go like on yourself. Like, for example, in Romania, you can go and, have accidents because the access is free on the mountain pathways. For example, in Italy, it's just the very well prepared people that manage the national parks, the forest. They know where to find the bears and how to manage the fauna, because they don't do only bears.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting about the Italians in Abruzzo is what they do is they actively encourage people not to take pictures of the bears. So if they encounter them, they say you should not get close to them and take pictures. And this is very antithetical to the current culture where people want to take photos all the time of animals they encounter and put it up on TikTok or these kind of things. And they're saying, no, you have to step back from nature. You have to, almost go the other way when you see a bear, which is a kind of policy of active non-interference, if you like, which I think should sort of be spread across the rest of Europe. Almost like we go to nature not to see the animals is something that needs to happen.
Do you think people actually pay attention to this? Do they heed the advice not to take pictures, or I can imagine
no. As someone said, it's basically it's like going hunting, but in a virtual world, like having a second life for the sake of having a photo of a bear and having some likes on various social networks. It's
yeah. So instead of having the bear's head on your wall, as you've had in the old days, the trophy, now you've got it on your Instagram feed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we see that most in Romania in the Transfiguration Highway, where you have 40 bears who basically stay on the roadside waiting for tourists to feed them. And the tourists throw them food and then take pictures and put it on TikTok. And that's a kind of the extreme level you now have. And these bears almost, they've attacked people, they've attacked tourists, attacked a German tourist. They actually are violent, and people still go. I mean, to me,
it's illegal, right? To stop.
It's illegal, but you have to catch them in the act, and there's jurisdiction issues, and it's very difficult to manage the situation.
Yes.
We have a question from a viewer, Dinara. She says, first of all, thank you for the documentary and the investigation behind it. I'm wondering, what are the common threads you observed in the countries covered, if any, in terms of the people's attitudes and the culture to bears? The movie looks into bears as cultural symbols and pride, yet the living bears are so neglected. How do you navigate this tension? So that's a good question.
It's a very good question. Well, I'll start, and then I'll give the microphone to Michael. For example, in Italy, we tried. Of course, part of the documentary was to get footage of the bears. We woke up at 3 a.m. going into spots where we had information that would be bears. We didn't see no bears. We even went up in the Dolomites with a mountain guide at 2,000 meters, and we did a 3-hour stakeout. We didn't see any bears, So, and in the same time, in the whole area, everything was branded with bears, like starting from T-shirts, magnets. Even the houses had decorations, which were, some houses were old as 100 years, so they had, all kinds of decorations with the bear symbols. So it is more, so the whole idea of the bear, I think it is part of the life and the culture. I'm referring now to Italy. But they are not trying to push it and to interfere with the natural course of the actual bear being there. Whereas, for example, in Romania, you kind of have the opposite way. You have people making a business out of the bear watching and bears being taken photos of. For example, there is one guy who bought a very big part of a land where originally he's a hunter, so he knew where the bear families live around there. So he bought that land, and he started feeding the bears. And in time, he managed to make like a business out of being his land. He built some kind of a bear observatory, and he takes tourists there every weekend, 2 or 3 days, in a weekend, and he makes money. That's also is because of the loopholes, because no one can forbid him what to do in his on his property, and also the resources of the forest rangers in Romania that should enforce the laws of animal protections are limited. So that would be one an antithetic example from from both countries. And then there is also Slovenia. Michael,
in Slovenia, it's a very different culture, because in Slovenia, what they do, so in Italy, as Ovidiu explained, they kind of keep apart. In Romania, they have this kind of situation where they feed them for bear watching. But in Slovenia, they actually feed them in order to hunt them. So the idea is that they have all this kind of huge network of locations where they actively feed bears corn. And then the bears come to that place and then they can shoot them as hunters. So Slovenia in some ways is like the south of Slovenia is like a bear farm. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And that's why, even though in Slovenia they have like a few hundred bears are killed every year, they still have an increasing population, which isn't the case in Sweden, where the numbers are going down.
And in Slovenia also, they kind of, if we can say this, they kind of try and to a certain point they succeed in managing so you won't see like litter or people going around trying to see the bears on their own, like for example would happen in Romania or Albania.
Yeah, but they kind of it's a very much regimented system where the bears come to the feeding place, and that's how they kind of operate. It's a very interesting situation. It's totally different from Romania, again, different from Slovakia, and who knows what happens in Russia. I don't even know what happens in Russia, where you have the most bears.
What is actually a difference between hunting and culling bears?
Well, essentially they're the same thing. I mean, the idea is that there's different ways that you can kill bears. You have some situation where you have a problem bear, which is causing a lot of trouble. It's maybe attacked someone, or it's stealing some pigs or something, and then that can be an order to kill that specific bear, and then you have culling, which is the idea that you have to bring the bear numbers down to a certain number, quota, let's say, and that can be through hunting. And that hunting can either be something organized in a very central fashion, or it can be a trophy hunt, which is something which happens in Slovenia, Bosnia, I think, Croatia, Estonia, and Russia. I think those are countries that still do trophy hunting, where basically, you can buy for several thousand euro the opportunity to go to this place and kill a bear and have your picture taken by the body. And in order to do that, the hunting organization would have to kind of somehow be sure that you would get access to a bear, which means effectively you would probably have to do that through artificial feeding, which is again encouraging the bear population to get close to humans. It's encouraging the bear population to expand. So there is this issue with the fact that, artificial feeding is another reason why bear numbers might be increasing.
We're getting a few more questions coming in. We'll get to those in a second. Just on this subject of dealing with problem bears, so the open season on problem bears, like bears that have injured or killed people, for example. In the documentary, you talk about trials of bears in Italy, I think it was. Bears going on trial for their lives, essentially. Tell us about that. What on earth is going on? How can you put a bear on trial?
Well, this is the IJ4 bear, wasn't it, in Trentino, yes. which killed an unprovoked attack, completely killed a jogger. And so the issue there is then what happens to this bear? The bear, I think, still is in a bear prison, which is effectively it's in prison effectively in Italy. And the issue then is what you should do with that bear. Should you kill it? Should you put it back into the wild, or should you put it in captivity, like in a shelter or something? So I think that, you know, probably almost everyone can agree that it would probably not be a good idea to put the bear back into the wild after it's killed someone. So I think that then the issue is whether or not you kill it or whether or not you put it into a bear shelter, essentially. And that's where the trial can come in. The trial can come in where say an organization could come and say, well, we are against you killing it, and we would take you to trial for that, because bears are protected under EU legislation and that kind of thing.
Oh, I see. So it's the process that's on trial rather than
the process.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. The interesting thing, of course, is that what does happen sometimes is that you know, a bear might have attacked someone or stolen some pigs in a small village in Romania, and then the mayor has the right to go out and kill that bear. But then the issue is, how can you identify which bear that is? You don't have the bear doesn't carry a passport. It doesn't have an ID, you know. I mean, so then what sometimes happens is there becomes a kind of sort of vigilante mentality where they go out and just kill any bear to make themselves feel better about the situation. So, you know, that's another problem. And then that process can be identified and criticized because it lacks evidence.
As we found out, even the most experienced hunters and forest rangers, they cannot identify certainly a certain individual of bears. Take also into account that bears shed, you know, in the spring and in the autumn, you know, so there's a slight change in the color pattern of the fur. So yeah.
You can't interrogate a bear, you know. You can't get a confession out of a bear. So I mean that's the problem sometimes that you face.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a question from a viewer, Grace. She thanks you for sharing this investigation. The clip from the documentary mentioned the sale of bear products like ointment and meat in some countries. Could you speak a bit more about your investigation in countries with clandestine or black market bear trades? Did you face any challenges in investigating these networks?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, what we found is in Slovenia, so the bears that are killed by hunters, their meat can be used legally as to eat. So you can eat. We ate in the film. You'll see there's a scene where we eat bear. We eat bear goulash in Slovenia, which is legally made. You can have bear carpaccio as well in Slovenia, which is available to buy. But what we also found is that in Kosovo, our colleague Vjosa Cerkini investigated the sale of bear fat on the black market as an ointment and as something to eat as a medicine. And she went to a woman in the film, and she bought some bear fat illegally. So you have, and in these countries, bears cannot be hunted, so it's actually illegal to do that. So that's the situation that we found. How did we find that information? Vjosa went to certain markets, asked around. This was an old traditional medicine in Albanian-speaking regions, and she just slowly, through very good human contact, eventually found a woman who would sell her bear fat.
Thank you. Okay, we have a question from Dumi. She asks, well, first of all, let me thank you for your work. Is the climate crisis present in discussions about the bear issue in the countries you covered? In Romania, we rarely talk about the impact of climate change on the life of bears. For example, longer and drier summers, less berries and water in the forests, etc. I was wondering if climate awareness is more present elsewhere, and if this awareness leads to better approaches to managing the bear population.
I think you point out something really good there with that question, which is the idea that it's not just the winters getting shorter, it's also the summers getting hotter, which means there's fewer berries. And because of that, actually bears are coming to urban areas. There's very little awareness about this in Romania. What we were shocked at when we were at a bear a festival last year talking to experts is no one seems to be doing research into the effect of climate crisis on bear populations in Romania, which to me is like, I mean, if they are, great, but we couldn't find anyone who actually had data on this, who was actually researching the subject. So it's that level of lack of knowledge we have of this situation. I don't think that in other countries there is a lot of difference. We spoke to one of the experts in Slovakia precisely about this issue, and he said, well, we think that climate change is having an effect, but we're not really sure why. And one of the things he said was, what's interesting is in South Transylvania and in Slovakia, because it's becoming warmer, a lot more people are growing corn in areas where they didn't used to grow corn. And that means, and bears love corn. So bears are actually coming directly into the cornfields. And they love cornfields because they're tall, which means they can hide there. And then they can just grab a bunch of cobs, sit down in the middle and just eat them like this. And they love it. So, I mean, that's another reason. It's not necessarily a direct result of climate change, but the fact that, agriculture changes and the bears adapt to that, and that's how they grow. But we need more people to do research into this because it's a fascinating area.
I never knew that bears love corn.
Yeah, I love corn.
Presumably they eat the whole cob, right? They're not sort of just taking...
I don't know, actually. I think they do a bit like that. They have...
You think so? Yeah. Quite an image.
I like how we are all learning a lot about bears. But I think one mistake we made, Tim, I think we haven't shared a link to the website where people can learn even more about the project. So I'm sharing it now in the chat. And Thank you. It is.
That's great. Yes, bears uncovered.
There's no footage of bears eating corn.
Not yet.
But there's a really good documentary out there.
That would certainly make the TikTok reels go wild, wouldn't it? If you had bears eating corn.
Yeah.
Delicate, fancy way.
Or a full Kentucky Fried Chicken, the whole lot.
Exactly, yes. We have another question. This one is from Alina. Thank you for your question, Alina. And she also thanks you for your work. She's curious about how the documentary has been received so far. Recently, there was a bear attack in Romania that tragically killed a young girl. And the public opinion was heavily divided between fear towards bears and aggressive criticism towards people who don't know how to interact with them. So how do you maintain space for nuance and dialogue in such emotional, heavy conversations? These are good questions today.
Yes, it's a good question. So with the recent case that had happened with the young girl being killed, I saw also a lot of the media, the mainstream media trying to get clicks and shares and being read, and of course it divided in in extreme points. Some people think, yeah, what was she doing there? She didn't know how to interact with the bear. Actually, no one really knows what happened there. But usually, the bear gets scared of humans, so it won't necessarily approach to a human. So this might have also been a circumstantial situation around there, an exception, as we were saying earlier. Again, the management of how the national parks and the access of the public, and of the people that go on their own in the forest and in the mountains. Also, what might have happened? These are just suppositions. The woman might have felt fell on the pathway, you know, because that pathway, it's a bit rocky. She might have fell, you know, and it might not have been necessarily, because in the media we saw she has been eaten by the bear, you know, because the rescue service found her after a few hours, you know. So yeah, we're coming back also. It's the human intervention and the management of the whole. It has to be very regarded as holistic, you know. Where do people have access? How do you manage the fauna, you know, and you know, all of the natural resources, you know. I think that's
I mean, we have to get back to a situation whereby the bears were afraid of humans.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we need to reach, that situation again. I mean, this is a horrible situation. It's very similar to the one in Italy, where it seemed to be a completely unprovoked attack. A lot of people who are killed in bear conflict are actually going out. They're like shepherds hitting bears with sticks and that kind of thing. The bears fight back. But there are these cases where it just seems to be someone hiking in a forest. And this has a completely psychologically destabilizing effect on walkers. I know people now in Romania who won't go into forests because they're afraid of being attacked by bears.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's actually having a knock-on effect on the whole tourism sector. So I think that you need to have this feeling, you need to really, really have a comprehensive education system. How do you deal with bears? Like you do in America and Canada. How do you deal with bears when you get in touch with them? Why you should stay away from them, and then get, you know, everyone to encourage themselves not to get close to bears. And I think that's, interestingly, one of the biggest problems in Romania is not Romanians. I mean, it's actually foreign tourists. And what we found in Transfăgărășeni Highway, where you have 40 bears just on the street, is that about half the people going there to feed bears are from Germany, Poland, Israel, these kind of countries. So there is this feeling that some people are almost coming to do in Romania what they couldn't do in their own country, which is horrific. And that's something as well that has to be stopped.
So what should people do if they're out for a hike in the woods and they come across a bear? I mean, European brown bears, they're not like grizzly bears or anything like that.
Yeah.
The States, which are, you know, really scary. Is there a protocol? Okay, obviously you've said don't take pictures of them, don't engage with them, don't give them food.
Yeah. First of all, nowadays one shouldn't go alone on when he or she wants to do a hike. You know, there's also a simple procedure that if you go on a longer hike, you can announce the mountain rescue service, which is quite available. You just make a phone call, and also try and make a bit of noise while you're going on your hike on the pathway. Have also bear spray and something like you know, a whistle, you know, which is quite the chances that a bear would come. Once the bear hears or smells you, the bear will go away. Bears are not like stray dogs, you know. They will not come begging for food. They are opportunistic, you know, but it's not the behavior you see in the stray dogs, you know, coming close to the. They don't have that adaptive mechanism yet. So, yeah.
Thank you for this. I'm actually making notes here because I really love hiking and enjoy hiking. At least I used to before I watched your documentary. But things changed in August ever since I saw it. So I think it was one of our last hikes when I started asking a lot of questions about the local area. So are there any bears here? What's the altitude and stuff like that? And I think it's because of the...
Yeah.
So I have a question. What is a bear spray? Is it a pepper spray? Would that work?
Yes. Basically, pepper spray dosed in a certain way in various sizes, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have seen my face when the group I was hiking with told me that we were passing by something that could be translated as a bear wall. I didn't want to ask why they call it bear war.
Well, you know what I love is when we're driving through Croatia, for example, and it's probably the same in Slovenia, and probably the same in Romania, I would imagine. And you're driving down the highway and you see these sort of overpasses, which are for bears and wolves. Mm-hmm. They're like special nature passes.
Yes.
I think that's so lovely.
Yeah.
Indeed.
To pass safely.
Yes, yeah, they're building those in Romania now, one or two of them. Yeah. The idea is that the bear is an umbrella species, so if it's suitable for bears to cross, then all the other animals can cross too.
Mm. We have another question from Dinara. It's a follow-up question from her last one, so thanks a lot. Related to the climate crisis, what is the situation around regulating development and constructions in these areas on the political level? Did any politicians comment on the film? I'm thinking the more human infrastructure expands, the less we can tell what constitutes a provocation to a bear, and if non-interference on individual level can actually solve the issues.
So there's two interesting issues here. So on the one hand, I think if you're from Romania, you know that it's quite easy to get some kind of permit to build what you want where you want. And so that means that you have a lot of buildings which are built in forested areas, and it's not hard to build them. So what you have is you have more buildings being built haphazardly within forest areas in Romania. But conversely, what you have in Romania is you have a lot of villages being abandoned because people are very old, because they're isolated, because the children don't want to live there once their parents have died. And so you have a lot of houses which are collapsing. And because those houses have a sort of small area around them where they used to grow fruit and vegetables, they go wild. And then the bears love that area because it has food that they like eating, because they eat the same food as humans. So actually what you have is you have bears, so the new areas in the forest, new buildings in the forest are going directly into bear territory, and then bears are coming into abandoned human areas. So this creates much more of an overlap, which is going on, which is absolutely fascinating.
It really is.
We also had an example of, I think in Vrancea, Michael, where there was like, I think a couple of families that, it's a very small village. It's not isolated, and they have like a small garden or orchard, and they said like, yeah, every spring there's a bear coming and eating fruits, and we just let him. We never had any problems with that bear. He just comes, and when he hears us, he just goes away. There's also people are used to bears.
It's like protection money that you pay to the bear.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost at the end of our hour. A question from Doomy, maybe this is a good one to end with. Will you continue working on this topic in the future? Should we keep an eye out for Bears Uncovered 2, the sequel?
I think that we need to, if we find a story which we think is really compelling in terms of bears, which we can follow up, we'd love to follow it up. But I think it depends on the story that we find. I mean that's what dictates what you do. I mean, what we'd be interested in is looking at how the whole hunting system works. I mean, to me, that's absolutely fascinating. I'd like to get deeper into that, but it requires a lot of work.
And also we have the outcome of that person being killed was that they now we have a quota for extraction, for problematic bears. And just last week, they are trying to start the program of relocating the problem bears, which most of them are female bears with cubs on the highway, one of the most important highways. So we're curious how that will go, because the news reports weren't really, I don't think they were well made. They were just saying, Yeah, they just started relocating, but no one actually told how are they going to do the relocation. Because we only have one bear shelter in Romania. And relocation, most experts, and as far as we've seen, the relocation in other areas doesn't work. The bear can travel as far as 150 kilometers. Once he has...
They come back.
Yeah, they will come back. Because they're opportunistic, and once they know there's easy access to food there, you know, the bear will come there for sure.
So you're saying they can go 150 kilometers away,
yes,
and they'll remember the route to come back.
Yes,
there was corn in that field. Whatever.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or people throwing food out of the window of their cars.
And
they have like an inbuilt GPS. It's incredible. Like Google Maps is in their head. They're incredible.
So they really are amazing animals. People should respect, I mean, obviously respect them for the dangers they pose, but also just what an incredible part of our ecosystem.
Yes.
Creatures are.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a test of us. I think it's a test of humans. I mean, in some ways it's a test of how we can learn to coexist with such a large predator. And it's our choice. Do we coexist with them or do we slaughter them? That's our choice. And if we choose to coexist with them, we have to find a way to do it. Because in some ways, they're the animals closest to us. You know, they stand on two legs. They have hands that look like us. If you look at a bear skeleton or a body, but it's very humanistic. They eat exactly the same food. So, I mean, they are very close to us in many ways. So it is a test of our ability to live with nature as to whether or not we can coexist with bears.
That's a fantastic sentiment to end this episode today. Thank you very much. Melita, do you have any final questions before we end, or should we?
Oh, I have plenty of questions, but I will keep them for Bears Uncovered too.
We look forward to that. So thank you very much to Ovidiu and to Michael. It's been really fascinating. And thank you to our audience for your excellent questions. And a reminder that our next IJ4EU Confidential episode will be a month from now. It's the 18th of October. And the subject of that one is how EU migration policy has failed the dead and the living. And this is one where we're going to interview journalists from an incredibly powerful investigation that was called the Border Graves investigation. And it found the unmarked graves of more than 1,000 irregular migrants across 8 countries who had died and been essentially buried in unmarked graves. Really powerful stuff. So please do join us for that. And in the meantime, stay safe.
In the meantime, you visit bearsuncovered.com.
Absolutely.
And watch the film.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for having.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.